Moonlight cloaks the Ozark haze, mystery in every twisted maze, whispers through the hollow trees.
These are pieces of the past, fragments of stories from the Ozarks. The story I was told was that First Lieutenant Jim Phillips Jr. wanted to be a fighter pilot, but because of an inner ear problem, washed out of fighter school and was made a bombardier on a B-17 Flying Fortress. He was killed by a Nazi saboteur who sabotaged the transport plane he was on. The family, when I was young, would talk about him often. One of the first killed in World War II from Newton County, Arkansas. I've always wanted to find out more about this, but couldn't find out much. Also, in the Jasper Cemetery, my uncle Ray Phillips served as a China Marine before the Second World War in maybe the 20s or 30s. He was the oldest of my Phillips family uncles. I remember as a young man being shown a photo taken in China of individuals being beheaded. My uncle John Bryce Hutchison was in the 5th Army Air Corps when World War II broke out. It would make him mad if you called it the Army Air Corps. He was in the Air Force. He was a private pilot before joining in the 1930s and wanted to be a fighter pilot, but they wouldn't let him because he didn't have any college. He was at Pearl Harbor 7 days after the Japanese bombed it and said it was still smoking and burning. Staff Sergeant John Hutchison was on his way to Australia and then to New Guinea, one of the worst places in the world to be stationed in World War II. He would tell me many stories about that war and things he saw. A Japanese pilot was shot down over their base. The Japanese had a parachute and bailed out into the Australian sector. Yes, most Japanese fighter pilots had parachutes. They were not all kamikazes. And this was early in the war. In fact, the entire time my Uncle Bryce was over there, we were pretty much getting our butts kicked by the Japanese. Two of my uncles, John Bryce Hutchison and Fay Hodge, who was in the Navy in World War II, told me the same story about how many times the Australians would put the Japanese into shark-infested waters between New Guinea and Australia, never making it to a POW camp. So it was common knowledge that Japanese prisoners held by the Australians generally had an extremely short life expectancy. My Uncle John Bryce's colonel ordered him to take the prisoner away from the Australians. According to Bryce, the Japanese spoke better English than any of the officers there, even the English officers. The Japanese POW had been educated in California and was talking about American movies and ball scores. When they got to the mess hall, he asked for peaches and cream. My uncle's colonel most likely saved the life of this Japanese POW. I was told that Union Hill got its name because it was an encampment for Union troops in the Civil War. There is a cave in the bluff across from Union Hill above the Little Buffalo River that the story I was told was used by Confederate soldiers who would hide in it and spy on Union troops. By night, women would sneak past Union pickets bringing food, water, and messages to and from the Confederates in the cave. The Union Army found out about this and put a cannonball into the cave, killing all the Confederate spies. The story I was told is that Dr. Lewis Phillips was a very, very dedicated doctor who put the needs of his patient ahead of his own needs. He contracted tuberculosis from his patients, and his wife was afraid of TB. My grandmother, Corey Jane Royce Phillips, took care of him until his death from that disease. His son had no children, so he left Dr. Phillips's 13 medical books to the grandson of the lady who took care of him. That's me. He was my great-uncle Lewis Phillips. The books were printed in late 1800s and to early 1900s. On his gravestone in Union Hill Cemetery, the words are written. His toils are past. His work is done. He fought the fight. The victory won. To bring comfort to those of us left behind, these words were engraved in his stone. His memory has been almost completely lost. Is just one of the fragments of the Ozarks, the lost stories that are out there. I would challenge you to find these stories and to bring them to life. Let them bloom back if you can. So many people over the centuries have lived and died, never to be remembered. Most did not get a stone, most did not get a marker throughout the history. And even those that did, those markers have worn away over the centuries. Find these stories. This is your challenge to the viewer, and I thank you for your time.